Hello Disney and Pixar fans, today we have a fun video for you. Today we will be discussing 10 Disney villains who weren't really the bad guy. Some of the names on this list may surprise you. Without any hesitation, let's get into it. Maleficent, Sleeping Beauty. First up we have Maleficent. From the 1959 classic Disney film Sleeping Beauty, this movie starts with King Stefan and Queen Leah, after many years with no children, finally being blessed with a child. They decided to have a special celebration to announce the child to the entire kingdom. After not receiving an invite, Maleficent, the proclaimed villain of this film, was furious and made a very dramatic entrance. She places a curse on the king and queen's child and states that on her 16th birthday, she will prick her finger and ultimately die. Thankfully, this curse was weakened by a couple of fairies who had actually been invited to the event. Instead of death, the child would simply fall into a deep sleep and await true love's kiss. Now, this may sound harsh just from the summary, but when you take a step back, you realize Maleficent probably just felt a little excluded. Was she really that evil? I mean, wouldn't you be upset if the entire kingdom had been invited to a party at the castle, and you were the only one not to receive an invitation? Even the other fairies got one, but not Maleficent. And one can only assume that this is due to her looks. She has pale green skin and horns. That made her seem menacing, but that didn't mean she was a bad person. In fact, it almost seems like the king and queen needed a certain image to attend their party, and poor Maleficent simply didn't fit their high profile. I mean, who's the shallow one now? We should all probably take this as a small reminder to never make anyone feel left out or excluded from social circles. Ursula, the Little Mermaid. Next up on our list, we have the Little Mermaid. Do you think Ursula was actually a villain? Well, I have some evidence that might sway your answer to that question. In the movie, we see Ursula, who had already been banished from the kingdom for some reason that we, the audience, are never privy to. However, one can assume it has something to do with the power struggle between her and Triton. In the film, Ursula makes a trade with Triton's daughter. She gives Ariel's legs in return for Ariel's voice. Ariel signs a contract. It was simple, with no sneaky business or any small print. Clear expectations from the beginning. Ariel is then left to be mute on land, but ultimately gets what she wants: true love. Does this make Ursula evil though? She doesn't trick Ariel or lie to her. She simply made an agreement with Ariel to exchange resources to help each other out. This begs the question, was she really the villain? Or was Ursula just a phenomenal businesswoman trying to get out of her current situation? You can't blame her for trying to move up in the world. Hades, from the movie Hercules. Taking up the third slot in our video today is the mighty Hercules, but more specifically looking at the main antagonist in the film, Hades. As we see at the beginning of the movie, Hades has already been cast into the underworld by Hercules' father, Zeus. In the underworld, Hades is forced to take care of the souls of the dead. Even though he hates the job he is given, he grits his teeth, and he does it. Is he shown any compassion from his siblings? No! They treat him like he's a lost cause, the black sheep of the family, if you will. While they're up in their riches and enjoying an abundance of fancy parties, Hades is literally dealing with dead people. So it isn't really surprising to me that he would attempt something as bold as kidnapping baby Hercules. He doesn't even really plan to harm him. He just wants his little imp friends to give Hercules a potion that will make him mortal. It's better than getting banished to the underworld and taking care of a bunch of dead people, right? As for using Meg, it can also be argued that he was doing the merciful thing. She wanted to trade her soul to save her beloved, and technically, that's what Hades does. Much like Ursula, Hades isn't evil. He's just good at business. Here's another fan favorite, Syndrome, from The Incredibles. Next, we have the Pixar classic from 2004, The Incredibles. In this film, a family of superhumans has to learn to live in a world that outlaws superheroes due to the mass destruction that usually ensues during a major battle. The world appeared to be safer without them. Syndrome, the main antagonist of the movie, was not evil in the beginning. No, he was just a young boy who got let down by his idol, the hero known as Mr. Incredible. When he met his hero, after a tiny lifetime of waiting, instead of being met with the kindness he expected, he was instead told to go home, due to the fact that he lacked superpowers. This tore the young child to pieces, so he set out to prove his former hero wrong. He began inventing tools and gadgets that would help him and other humans without the need for supers or their powers. The only thing that happened is he fell a little bit off track and found himself falling down the rabbit hole to becoming a supervillain. But is that really his fault, or did all that stem from the unkind words spoken by his idol, Mr. Incredible? Hyenas, the Lion King, We all remember The Lion King and its lovable cast of musical animals. In that movie, there were some pretty unlovable characters too, like Simba's Uncle Scar and his band of hungry hyenas. Because the hyenas attempted to snack on the little prince of the Pride Land several times throughout the film, it's easy for Disney to paint them as villains, along with their leader Scar. But is this really the case? After examining the movie, I felt that the hyenas kind of got a bad reputation for something that they were sort of forced to do. After being banished from the Pride Lands by Simba's father, Mufasa, the hyenas found themselves with the lack of resources. They didn't have a good food source, so they were always hungry, and they were also living in an elephant graveyard for goodness sakes. In comes Scar, offering them food and preaching how Mufasa and his band of lions were evil, and that they should rule Pride Rock, even though that really meant that Scar would rule Pride Rock, not necessarily the hyenas. When Scar's plan becomes a reality, the hyenas get painted as nothing other than hungry beasts that don't care what they eat. But can they really be blamed for that? They went from starving to having a full plate. They shouldn't be blamed for eating off of it. Scar is clearly evil, but I think a different song should be sung for his easily influenced companions. Shere Khan. The Jungle Book. Number 6 on our list is a tough one. In The Jungle Book, we have the evil Shere Khan, who is constantly trying to eat Mowgli. This looks pretty sinister, but when you look into Shere Khan and all that he has gone through, it's easier to see his side of the story. He harnessed no ill will towards Mowgli. His disagreement was with all of mankind. You see, they had come into his jungle, his home, and began to tear it down. They burned his home and chased him with fire. Shere Khan was terrified of man and wanted to do everything he could to keep the rest of the jungle safe. Once the wolf pack began to raise a human child, Shere Khan immediately sees the man cub as a threat to his way of living, along with that of many other jungle animals. He doesn't see a boy that he hates and feels malicious toward. No, he sees a threat and he acts on it to keep his jungle safe. Is that so wrong? Charles F. Muntz. Up. Literally up. Next, we are taking a look at Charles F. Muntz, the supposed villain of Pixar's Up. Charles F. Muntz is the main antagonist and is depicted as a famous explorer admired by the main character of the film. In Up, Charles finds the bones of a bird in South America that were claimed to be a fake by the scientific community. In shame, he spends the rest of his life searching for proof of this giant bird's existence. The only contact he has with anything is that of his dogs. He becomes so lonely that he invents collars that allow the dogs to speak and communicate with him. When he meets the main characters of the movie, Carl and Russell, he sees that they have found the bird that he has spent so long hunting. In his madness, he decides he is willing to do whatever it takes to capture this bird and prove to the world that he was not a fraud. Our protagonists get caught up in his schemes as they attempt to save the bird that they have bonded with. Sure, Charles goes a little too far, but I think being called a fraud and further ostracized by society would drive anyone to clear their name and prove themselves right, especially since he was telling the truth the entire time. Plus, being alone for so long would drive anyone to madness. He just happened to be the poor soul that was going through it. Chef Skinner, Ratatouille. In 2007, Ratatouille came off our plate and onto the big screen. This cast includes the lovable rat Remy, who was an aspiring chef. Sadly, rats are not allowed in the kitchen, thus making him enemy number 1 to almost every chef out there. Unless, of course, you happen to be a chef that can't cook and uses the rat to cook all of your meals for you. Chef Skinner is seen as a hateful villain throughout the whole movie. Is he truly evil, though? Or is he just a head chef at a very upscale restaurant that doesn't want a rodent in his kitchen? I mean, I've worked in a kitchen before, and seeing a rat on the counter is the absolute last thing that you want, especially if you are the chef and your restaurant is critically acclaimed. I can see where Chef Skinner's anger came from. It wasn't anything personal against Remy. He was just adhering to the health code. Mordo, Brave. Coming in 9th place on our list is a personal favorite of mine. It's Disney Pixar's Brave. In this movie, Merida meets a witch in the woods who tells her of a story that is directly related to the villain of the movie, Mordo. Mordo is originally introduced as a savage bear that has a thirst for humans. In reality, Mordo is the eldest son of a wise and beloved king. He was the oldest of 4 sons, and each had an attribute that made them special. One was wise, another was just, the third was compassionate, and the eldest, Mordo, was strong. When the king passed on, instead of Mordo inheriting the throne, which was his birthright and also had been the tradition of the kingdom for generations beforehand, The old king split the kingdom into 4 pieces. This drew Mordo into a fit, fueled by greed and what he believed was rightfully his. He inevitably was transformed into a bear. He was forced to live out his days in this new body, to which he saw none of his inheritance. Instead, he got to see the other kingdoms thrive. Mordo was clearly handed a raw deal on almost every occasion. So was he truly evil, or was he shaped into the form by a bunch of bad events that happened to him? Taka, Moana, last but not least, is brought to us by Moana. The villain in Moana comes in the form of a giant lava beast that brings nothing but death and destruction to the lands that it infects. They call it Taka, and this monster is one that was created by one of the heroes in the movie, Maui. Maui stole a stone that is referred to as the Heart of Te Fiti. Te Fiti was once a beloved island goddess that spread prosperity all around. When the demigod Maui stole her heart, she began to succumb to corruption. This distorted her and turned her into Taka, the lava demon. In the rage of Taka, many islands were destroyed. Once the stone was replaced, we see that it was Te Fiti all along, finally returning to her resting place in the islands, with the world beginning to prosper again. It's pretty clear that Taka was never a villain at all, just simply a goddess who had her heart stolen and in turn lost her way. Well, some of those really make you think and help you realize how deep some of these films can go. Thank you for watching. That's all, Disney fans. Let us know in the comments if you think these villains were really misunderstood or not, or if we missed any on our list. And like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.